Okay, review for Shocker. Wes Craven, starring Mitch Pileggi of the X Files and Peter Berg, who now pretty much is a director. He directed Lone Survivor. So I thought I've seen this movie before, but I think I've seen clips of it, and I finally watched it. And then I also watched it also with the commentary from Wes Craven, which I enjoyed the commentary. I thought it was interesting. And this is a crazy movie. This is a crazy movie that the rules are all over the place. Like I just watched Siskel and Ebert review a bunch of Wes Craven movies, and Siskel actually really loved the movie, and Roger Ebert said he wanted to like it more, but he couldn't understand the rules, and that's kind of how I am with this movie, because they're all over the place. Like basically Mitch Pileggi is this crazy psycho killer. He's great. Now Mitch Pileggi's amazing in this. If you're an X-Files fan, I would say just watch it for him. Peter Berg's pretty good too. He gives a pretty good performance. His girlfriend's pretty good too. Camille Cooper. And then Wes Craven said that he really liked her and thought she was, she's really beautiful and she's a really good actress. But then soon after this, she kind of just moved away from Hollywood and married a guy, started a family, which is fine. But so you don't really see her in much. But Ted Raimi's in this. Richard Brooks is in this. I think he was in that show Homicide. He's been in a bunch of stuff. But Mitch Pileggi, and this is all spoilers. This movie came out a long time ago. So, Mitch Pileggi's a killer. He ends up killing Peter Berg's girlfriend. And he kills he's a serial killer. Peter Berg is kind of having visions of him, so he knows who he is. He knows where he owns like a television electronic repair shop in this rundown, beat up place. And Peter Berg goes to his stepfather, who the movie opens with Mitch Pileggi killing his stepmother, Peter Berg's. And he goes to him and he says, "Look, I think I know where he is. I am having these visions." His stepfather doesn't really like this. He's the cop looking for him, but he says, "Okay, fine." So they go and raid the guy's house, Mitch Pileggi's, and he slips away. He ends up killing a couple cops, and then he ends up killing Peter Berg's girlfriend. And I thought that was kind of like an oversight of the movie. I mean, I guess sometimes in a movie something has to happen and she has to die because she becomes important later. She kind of becomes like a ghost kind of thing. But why not have a cop or two outside of her house? Because he's a football player. He goes to practice and Mitch Pileggi kills her. And then soon after that, he gets caught. And then soon after that, they cut to him being put in the electric chair, which is a very Hollywood thing because that actually takes a long time. If you're, it depends on the state really, but if you're convicted of murder and they sentence you to death, you get all these appeals, and it often goes to the state Supreme Court or the federal Supreme Court. But whatever, it's a movie. Wes Craven, you can tell him this is a smart guy. He understands that. But yeah, and then during this, right before, he's like praying to the TV to give him powers, and then what does the TV say to him? He's like, "No problem, buddy," or something. And then like it electrocutes the priest that's by him and the guards, and he gets imbued with these powers of Shocker. And basically, how I would describe it is he is Electro, the Spider-Man villain, especially in that movie with Jamie Foxx. He has all of those powers, but he also can inhabit people, kind of like a ghost, or is, like demon possessed people, kind of. So he can also do that, and he can be jumping through the electricity, sockets and through your TV. At one point, him and Peter Berg, I thought this part was great. This is one of my favorite parts. They both jump into the TV, and they're kind of fighting each other through the historical like time period. Like at one point they're in World War II, maybe a little bit of World War One, maybe some Vietnam. And I like how they're like dodging the bullets that are being shot at the other soldiers. That actually looked pretty good, especially for 1989. And then at one point they're like a nuclear explosion. They're in that. It's like, how do you survive that? But whatever. I thought that was hilarious. That part's great. Like I did enjoy the movie, but the rules are all over the place. They don't make much sense. Peter Berg's girlfriend comes back as like kind of like a ghost, but I don't know. I guess she's just kind of like Mitch Pileggi, but why did she get kind of imbued with the Shocker powers? Because as far as I understand, he didn't have them until whatever, he made a deal with the TV. Mitch Pileggi. This movie's got a weird sense of humor that Wes Craven talks about. He says he was going through this terrible divorce at the time, and he thinks it kind of made him have this like kind of dark sense of humor, which he fully admits. Great commentary. I'm going to listen to, I think, a couple more Wes Craven commentaries, because he seems like a really intelligent guy. He's very soft-spoken. He seems like a very nice guy. It's too bad he died. Because I like a lot of his movies. I mean, I'd say I like this. I think he's done much better. But it's an entertaining film. Mitch Pileggi is giving it 1,000%. So is Peter Berg. I mean, they beat the crap out of each other in parts of this movie, which I thought was just hilarious. And Wes Craven talks about that, like, just multiple times. They're just beating each other up. Later, it's revealed that Mitch Pileggi is actually Peter Berg's real father, and that he killed his mother, and he has this limp. And Peter Berg, as a little kid, picked up a shotgun and shot him in the knee. So he permanently has this limp, and then it's kind of, now this is haunting him. And a theme in this movie is, will the sins of the father go to the son, where he will embrace being violent, and that kind of has a payoff at the end. But yeah, it's a crazy movie. It's on IMDb, it says supernatural horror comedy. Yeah, definitely. Kind of an interesting thing in this movie also is, I liked how Mitch Pileggi is in it a good amount, but at some points, especially like in the middle, he's not, because he's just like jumping into people's bodies, and then he takes over, but they still have the limp. So that was kind of an odd choice, but it makes sense though, because then Peter Berg can be like, oh, okay, so you're still, Mitch Pileggi, the serial killer. Like at one point he like, like he's like a little girl, and then the little girl's like cussing at Peter Berg, and then she tries to run him over with like a giant steamroller, a construction vehicle, and then at another point he's a cop. He's one of the cops that his dad knows, and he tries to get into Peter Berg's house and say, "Hey, I'm here to pick you up to take you to the station. Your father wants to talk to you." But then he realizes it's him, and then he has the limp. And then in the end, he takes over his stepfather, the cop. He also takes over this psychiatrist who was a witness to him being created as Shocker, and then instantly he jumps into her body. And then I thought that scene was hilarious too, because she's in the car. They're like, "Oh, we need to take her to the ambulance," and then she just attacks both of the cops in the car, and then they just run right into a giant tanker full of gas, and then they just explode. So I think you can tell Wes Craven's having a pretty good time making this, but he said he was going through some personal turmoil at the time. But it is an entertaining movie. I know at the time it didn't get that great of reviews, but it's not his best movie, but it's not his worst, I would say, for Wes Craven. But according to Wes Craven, the film was severely cut of an R rating. It took around 13 submissions to the MPAA to receive an R instead of an X. Some of the scenes that were cut included Pinker spitting out fingers that he bit off the prison guard, longer and more graphic electrocution of Pinker, and longer scenes of possessed coach stabbing his own hand. Right, he talked about that in the review, or in the commentary. Also, the scene where he's biting the lip of that prison guard, that looked really good and brutal. I was like, oh man, he's like biting the guy's lip, and then like Wes Craven's like, yeah, that's a prosthetic lip, and it looks great though. It looks really good. Throughout the commentary, he's kind of like, oh, like I don't think this looks that good anymore, and definitely some shots don't, but I'd say overall I think it looks okay. I mean, like when he's kind of like the ghostly form, you could see through him, but I don't know, I didn't think that looked terrible. Like he just kind of looks like a ghost, like, but more blue. I thought it looked okay. But yeah, he's kind of like, oh, we could have done this better, but we didn't have enough money. But even though he was like, this was the biggest budget movie I directed up to that point. So, but he's like, now, we do more computers and there's a little bit of CGI in it. He was saying that there's this scene where all this rain's pouring down, and he said he's never done that before until this movie with artificial rain, or, it's like these giant, they have these bunch of tanks and a bunch of sprinklers overhead, and that's usually in a movie when it's raining like that. That's usually what it is. So thought that was cool. He got to do some new things because I guess Nightmare on Elm Street and other movies made a bunch of money, so they're like, okay, we'll give you some more money to play with. And also, a thing interesting that Mitch Pileggi's in this, because parts of this movie, it kind of did remind me of an X-Files episode. It really did. Like, even some of the tone, maybe a little bit more, not lighthearted, but because there's definitely some comedy parts in this. But I don't know, just like him being able to move through electricity, and he's a serial killer, and they're trying to stop him. Stuff like that kind of reminded me of an X-Files episode, which I liked. Originally envisioned as a series in the vein of Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street, but after the lukewarm box office reception, the idea was dropped. Yeah, I could see that. Mitch Pileggi appeared in characters as Horace Pinker to promote the film on a special Halloween episode of Headbangers Ball. I don't even know what that is. Wes Craven allegedly conceived of the story as well as characters of Horace Pinker as response to the diminishing quality of the series of Nightmare on Elm Street. Craven had a hand in writing and producing A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, which he saw as a way of finishing that series. Well, it didn't finish it, but when shooting the scene where Jonathan Wade goes into the lake, Peter Berg suffered hypothermia due to extreme cold temperatures. And if you could do me a favor, smash that like button. Thanks, it really helps the channel. According to an article in Fangoria magazine, Wes Craven first pitched the concept as a television series to Fox. Craven later crossed over to TV with the short-lived NBC series Nightmare Cafe. Huh. I didn't even know that this was a thing. So it's creators Jonathan Craven and Wes Craven. Is that like his brother? Oh yeah, and Sam Raimi's brother's in this. Ted Raimi. And he gets killed. So filmed in 10 weeks on a low budget, Wes Craven said that this was achieved by having a small crew and little-known actors. The counter person at the football game is Jessica Craven, the daughter of Wes Craven. After being forced out of a child's body, Pinker possesses a hot blonde woman played by Denjeri Taylor. Noting the body's weakness and pure power, Pinker cleverly plays up the body's strength, i.e. good looks, pretending to be a damsel in distress in order to lure in stronger victims. There are many similarities to the original Nightmare on Elm Street film. The opening shot of Pinker working on his television set is similar to the opening shot of Freddy making his trademark gloves. That's true. In both movies, the protagonists have nightmares about the killer that turns out to be real, and have fathers who are disbelieving police officers. Wow, yeah. In both movies, the protagonist's lover is murdered by the killer, and in both films, the killer comes back from the dead to seek revenge on those responsible for his own death. Which Craven talks about that there's some themes that you keep repeating in his movies. So, but it's a pretty good commentary if you can get it on the Blu-ray. I definitely recommend it. I mean, you know, the movie's maybe a little too long because it's like an hour 45. It's maybe a little too long, but it's nothing crazy, you know. For a lot of like movies like this, I think an hour 30, an hour 35 is kind of the length that you want to aim for. But, you know, what do I know? He's Wes Craven, right? One of the best horror directors ever. So, but yeah, and a lot of the criticisms he has, I mean, I'd agree. I think he's a little too harsh, like I said, on the, how some of the special effects look, but yeah, I think that's about it though. Check it out if you haven't seen it. I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's a pretty good time. You know, I think it's a fun movie, handling some dark material, but you know, Mitch Pileggi is amazing in it. I think he's a really underrated actor, and it's nice to see a movie where he's in a lot of it. Because even in the X-Files, I mean, usually he's kind of just, you know, he's the assistant director of the FBI. He's kind of just in it for a little bit. Some episodes he's in it way more. But it's nice to see him in a movie where he's, the villain in it. So, yeah. But that's about it, though.